Captain Ziktar's ocular membranes contracted as the airlock hissed open. 300 space exploration cycles had not prepared him for this moment face-to-face contact with a Class C civilization representative. The human female called Ambassador Nora stood before him smaller than expected, her soft features arranged in what his cultural briefing had identified as a diplomatic smile. "Welcome aboard the Boundless Horizon," Ziktar said, his translation unit converting his harmonic vibrations into the crude sound patterns humans used for communication. "I trust your journey through our decontamination chamber was not too uncomfortable." "Not at all, Captain," Ambassador Nora replied, her voice registering as unexpectedly melodious in Ziktar's sensory apparatus. "Though I admit the neural scan tingled more than I expected." Ziktar made no acknowledgement of this casual observation. Emotional responses to standard procedures were precisely what the Galactic Confederation found most perplexing about humans. 3 years had passed since first contact, and still the Confederation's Grand Councils debated whether establishing formal relations with Earth was worth the unpredictability. "The High Council awaits our transmission," Ziktar said, gesturing with a multi-jointed limb toward the ship's central chamber. "We have allocated exactly 47 minutes for this preliminary discussion." As they walked the gleaming corridor, Ziktar observed the human's peculiar gait, inefficient and bouncing. His second officer, Pax, followed at regulation distance, recording every micro-movement for the xenobehavioral database. "Fascinating inefficiency," Pax sub-vocalized through their private channel. "Notice how she wastes energy with each step." "Observation without judgment, Officer Pax," Ziktar replied. "Remember the Varelian incident." Pax's sensory ridges flattened in acknowledgement. The Varelian diplomatic catastrophe, where an officer's stray comment about the ambassador's repulsive reproductive cycle had triggered a 70-year communication freeze, remained a cautionary tale at the Academy. The central chamber door parted, revealing a half-circle of Confederation representatives, already seated behind a curved crystalline table. The room's architecture, all clean angles and purposeful spaces, reflected the Confederation's highest values: logic, efficiency, control. Ambassador Nora paused at the threshold, and Ziktar's sensors detected a momentary spike in her respiratory pattern. "Is the atmospheric composition uncomfortable?" he inquired, more from protocol than concern. "No, Captain. I'm just taking it all in. This is historic, after all." Historic. Another emotional overlay humans insisted on applying to standard procedural events. Ziktar had studied Earth's transmission archives extensively. Humans seemed incapable of experiencing anything without attaching emotional significance to it, a trait the Confederation's psychological division had flagged as potentially hazardous to interstellar diplomacy. Admiral Zevnar. The mission's ultimate authority rose from his central position. His age-whitened exoskeleton gleamed under the chamber's precision lighting. "Ambassador Nora of Earth?" His voice reverberated through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We welcome you as the Galactic Confederation welcomes all emerging civilizations with rational assessment and proportional engagement." The transmission screen activated, displaying the High Council members from 17 star systems. Their collective gaze fell upon the small human female, the first of her kind to stand before them. "Esteemed members of the Confederation," Nora began, her voice remarkably steady for a species known for vocal variability. "Earth extends its gratitude for your willingness to consider our application for observer status. While we understand our technological development places us in classification C, we believe our unique perspectives may offer value beyond our current development stage." Ziktar noted the subtle shift in Admiral Zevnar's posture, a near imperceptible gesture of skepticism. Class C civilizations rarely offered anything beyond anthropological curiosity. Earth, with its chaotic history, emotional decision-making, and fractured governance, hardly seemed poised to change this pattern. "We have reviewed your species' historical archives," Admiral Zevnar stated. "Your persistent tendencies toward territorial conflict, emotional governance, and resource mismanagement raise significant concerns. Before discussing observer status, we must address the foundational question. Has Earth achieved the stable rationality required for Confederation interaction? Ambassador Nora straightened her posture. Admiral, with respect, emotion and reason are not opposing forces in human understanding. Our greatest achievements at scientific discovery, social progress emerge from their integration. If I may demonstrate, she activated a small device she'd been permitted to bring aboard. A three-dimensional projection appeared Earth's artistic evolution alongside its technological development. Music, that peculiar human preoccupation with organized sound, played softly as images of human scientific breakthroughs blended with their artistic expressions. Notice the correlation between periods of great emotional expression and accelerated innovation, Nora continued. When we feel deeply, we often think most clearly. Ziktar exchanged a glance with Pax. This approach, appealing to emotion as a positive force, was precisely what the briefing had warned might occur. Yet the presentation was unexpectedly logical in its construction. An interesting anthropological perspective, Admiral Zevnar acknowledged his tone, making clear the limited value he assigned to it. However, the Confederation's concerns remain practical. Your species' unpredictability presents coordination challenges. For instance, our simulations indicate a 78% probability that humans would prioritize emotional satisfaction over collective efficiency in resource allocation scenarios. The discussion continued along predicted lines, the Confederation raising rational concerns, the human responding with what their species called passion. Ziktar observed the minute shifts in Nora's vital signs, noting how certain topics triggered physiological responses that seemed involuntary. Then came the moment that would change everything. Admiral Zevnar had just completed a particularly pointed assessment of Earth's governance inefficiencies when Ziktar's sensors detected an anomaly. Ambassador Nora's ocular ducts were secreting fluid. The liquid accumulated until surface tension could no longer contain it, then rolled down her facial epidermis in small glistening trails. Pax immediately transmitted an alert code. The Confederation representatives stiffened in unison. Ambassador Ziktar said, urgency overriding protocol. You appear to be leaking ocular fluid. Should we activate medical protocols? The human looked confused for a moment, then raised her hand to her face, seeming surprised to find it wet. Oh, she said softly. I'm sorry, I'm crying. It's nothing to be concerned about. But it was too late. The chamber had already shifted to security alert status. The transmission to the High Council cut immediately standard procedure when biological anomalies were detected. Containment Protocol Sigma-7. Admiral Zevnar announced, rising from his seat as protective barriers emerged around the Confederation representatives. Captain Ziktar, isolate the human representative immediately. Ziktar moved swiftly, positioning himself between Nora and the chamber exit. Ambassador, I must ask you to remain stationary. This fluid emission requires security assessment. It's just crying, Nora explained, confusion evident in her voice. It's a normal human response. I received personal news during the Admiral's speech. My sister just had her baby. I became emotional, that's all. But Ziktar had already accessed the classified xenobiological database. The entry on human crying had been flagged with the highest security rating. According to limited intelligence, this behavior had been observed immediately preceding several of humanity's most devastating conflicts. Earth's own historical records showed military leaders moved to tears before ordering mass destructions. Ambassador, you will be escorted to a secure chamber while we assess the situation. Ziktar stated, his tone leaving no room for negotiation. Officer Pax, initiate full ship quarantine protocols and prepare a direct communication line to Central Command. Nora's expression shifted to what appeared to be genuine alarm. Captain, this is a significant overreaction. Crying is often an expression of joy or empathy, positive emotions. Please let me explain. Explanation will be permitted after security protocols have been satisfied. Ziktar interrupted, gesturing to the security drones that had already surrounded the human. Your cooperation is appreciated. As Nora was escorted from the chamber, Admiral Zevnar approached Ziktar. Their communication shifted to a secure frequency. The human emotional display matches pattern Omega-17, the Admiral stated gravely. Central Intelligence has flagged this as a potential pre-aggression signal. Admiral, with respect, could this be a cultural misinterpretation? The ambassador claims this crying can indicate positive emotions. Captain, you've studied their history. How many Earth leaders wept before launching devastating attacks? Their own Churchill, Stalin, even Gandhi, all documented displaying this behavior before significant conflicts. Admiral Zevnar's exoskeleton clicked with tension. We cannot risk misinterpreting this. Directive is clear. Determine the true cause and intent of this display and prepare defensive measures. Ziktar acknowledged the order, but something in his logical circuits seemed misaligned. In 300 cycles of space exploration, he had encountered 142 distinct civilizations. None had ever triggered such an immediate security response for what appeared to be a simple biological function. Within minutes, Ziktar had locked down the boundless horizon and established a secure channel to Central Command. The response was immediate and unambiguous. Priority directive: determine true cause of human ocular secretion. This may indicate preparation for hostility. Earth records show pattern correlation between this crying behavior and subsequent aggressive action. Assess threat level. Authorization granted for memory probe if diplomatic methods fail. Confederation fleet on standby. Ziktar stared at the directive, his multiple hearts accelerating slightly. Memory probes were a measure of last resort, invasive, often damaging, and a direct violation of the diplomatic immunity they had granted the ambassador. Sir, Pax interrupted his thoughts. Preliminary analysis of the ambassador's vital signs during the emission event shows unusual patterns. Her claim about family reproduction news cannot be verified, but her autonomic responses showed markers consistent with deception. She lied about the reason for her tears. The probability exceeds 83%, Captain. Ziktar felt the weight of 3 centuries of training bearing down on him. The rational approach was clear: treat this as a potential first stage of human aggression and proceed accordingly. Yet something, perhaps the countless civilizations he had successfully integrated into the Confederation, gave him pause. I will speak with her directly, he decided, alone. Captain, protocols strongly advise against. I am aware of protocols, Officer Pax. I am also aware that in 300 cycles, I have never encountered a species that initiated aggression through secreting ocular fluid. Prepare the interrogation chamber, but I will speak with her first. The secure holding room was deliberately designed to be neutral, neither threatening nor comfortable. Ambassador Nora sat at a simple table, her posture suggesting tension, but not fear. Captain, she acknowledged as he entered, I hope we can clarify this misunderstanding quickly. Ziktar settled his form opposite her. Ambassador, I must inform you that your biological response, this crying, has triggered significant security concerns. Our intelligence suggests a strong correlation between this behavior and subsequent human aggression. For a moment, Nora looked genuinely shocked. Then unexpectedly her face contorted and more tears appeared. Ziktar fought the instinct to call for security. You think crying means we're about to attack? She asked, her voice modulating in that unpredictable way humans often did during emotional states. Captain, that's a profound misunderstanding of human biology. Then explain, Ambassador. Our records show human military leaders displaying this behavior before launching devastating attacks. Your own Churchill wept before ordering bombardments. Nora took a deep breath, visibly attempting to compose herself. Tears can come from many emotions: joy, sadness, frustration, relief. Yes, some leaders may have cried before difficult military decisions, but that was from the weight of responsibility, not as a signal of aggression. Churchill wept from grief at the deaths he knew his orders would cause, not from bloodlust. Then why did you exhibit this behavior during our council meeting? Officer Pax's analysis indicates deception in your explanation about your sister's reproductive event. Nora's gaze dropped momentarily. You're right. I wasn't completely truthful. It wasn't just about my sister's baby. She looked up, meeting his compound eyes directly. I was overwhelmed by the moment standing there representing humanity before the Confederation. The weight of it, the history being made. And frankly, the dismissive way the Admiral spoke about human governance and emotions, it hurt. Hurt a verbal exchange caused physical pain. Emotional pain, Captain. We feel that too, quite intensely sometimes. Ziktar processed, this his analytical mind struggling with the concept. So your tears were a response to negative evaluation, partly, but also to the enormity of the situation, to joy at the opportunity, frustration, at the misunderstanding, hope for what this could mean for Earth. Many emotions at once. That's very human. Before Ziktar could respond, Officer Pax entered the chamber, his movements indicating urgency. Captain Intelligence update, he said, handing over a secure data tablet. Critical priority. The information on the screen made Ziktar's sensory organs pulse in alarm. Earth's quantum communication network, which the Confederation had believed to be at least 50 years beyond their technological capacity, had just activated a planetary defense grid. More concerning, their quantum computational capabilities appeared to exceed previous estimates by an order of magnitude. Ambassador, Ziktar said, his tone hardening. While we've been discussing your tears, your planet has activated advanced defense systems that your species should not yet possess. This suggests your emotional display may indeed have been a signal. Nora's expression changed to what Ziktar now recognized as alarm. Captain, I had no knowledge of any defense activation, but if it happened, it's likely a response to your ship going into lockdown. Our monitoring systems would have detected that. You claim Earth possesses technology capable of detecting our security protocols. Technology far beyond your classification level. For a long moment, Nora was silent. Then she seemed to make a decision. Captain Ziktar, I need to speak with you privately, without records. What I'm about to tell you isn't authorized by my government, but given the circumstances, I see no alternative. Ziktar hesitated, then signaled Pax to leave. Against all protocol, he deactivated the room's recording systems. You have 5 minutes, Ambassador. Earth knows about the Vraxians, she said without preamble. The name of the Confederation's most feared enemy, hanging in the air between them, made Ziktar's exoskeleton constrict involuntarily. That's impossible. Information about the Vraxian Empire is classified at the highest levels of the Confederation. 3 months ago, we intercepted and destroyed a Vraxian scout ship at the edge of our solar system. Nora continued. We've been analyzing their technology and preparing defenses ever since. If this is true, why wasn't the Confederation informed immediately? Because we weren't certain who we could trust. The Vraxian ship carried extensive data on Confederation worlds, defense systems, communication protocols. We couldn't rule out the possibility of infiltration. Ziktar's analytical mind raced through the implications. The Vraxians, a warrior species with no discernible emotions, operating as a collective consciousness, had been engaged in a slow, methodical war against the Confederation for generations. Their philosophy of perfect efficiency through elimination of emotional response made them view the Confederation as contaminated by its association with emotional species. How could Earth, a Class C civilization, possibly neutralize a Vraxian vessel? Their technology exceeds yours by centuries. Nora leaned forward. Because we didn't use technology to defeat them, not entirely. We used something they have no defense against. A pause. Emotions. Explain. We've developed what we call the empathy net, a quantum field that essentially transmits human emotional states. Against most species, it would be meaningless, but against the Vraxians, With their collective consciousness that has never experienced emotion, she trailed off, letting the implication hang. You're suggesting you weaponized your emotions against them. The concept was so alien that Ziktar struggled to process it. Not weaponized, Captain. Shared. We didn't destroy the Vraxians on that ship. We converted them. They surrendered. They're currently on Earth learning to experience feelings for the first time in their species' history. They've been creating art, writing poetry. Poetry Vraxians. The idea was so absurd that Ziktar's translation matrix briefly glitched, trying to convey his disbelief. I understand your skepticism, but think about it, a species that has eliminated all emotion suddenly experiencing the full range of human feeling. It was overwhelming for them. They had no defenses against it. Ziktar fell silent, his mind working through the implications. If true, this would reshape the Confederation's entire understanding of both humans and their centuries-long conflict with the Vraxians. You understand that I cannot accept these claims without verification. Of course. That's why I'm offering you access to the captured Vraxian vessel and its crew. But Captain, time is critical. Our intelligence suggests the main Vraxian fleet is preparing for a major offensive against the Confederation. They've detected our emotional breakthrough and see it as an existential threat. Ziktar's decision circuits balanced probability duty and the unprecedented nature of this claim. After 12.3 seconds, an eternity in his decision-making process, he reached a conclusion. I will consult with Admiral Zevnar. If your claims can be verified, the Confederation will need to reassess Earth's classification immediately. There's one more thing, Captain. Nora's expression grew more intense. The tears you witnessed, they weren't just from personal emotion. They were from the weight of knowing that the survival of both our civilizations might depend on whether you could understand the power of something you've been trained to dismiss as weakness. Hours later in the Admiral's private chamber, Ziktar faced the most significant challenge of his long career. Admiral Zevnar had assembled the ship's senior command, and a secure transmission line to the High Council remained open, though muted while they deliberated. This claim is outlandish, Admiral Zevnar stated flatly. The notion that human emotions could somehow neutralize Vraxian consciousness defies all rational analysis. I agree, it seems improbable, Ziktar acknowledged. However, the intelligence concerning Earth's quantum capabilities has been verified. They should not possess such technology at their development stage. That merely suggests our intelligence was flawed, or they received outside assistance. It does not validate this empathy net concept. Pax, who had been analyzing the data, interjected. Admiral, with respect, there are anomalies in recent Vraxian communication patterns that could support the human's claim. We've detected a 23% decrease in efficiency in their border patrol algorithms, and several outposts have failed to report at standard intervals. The Admiral's sensory ridges flattened in dismissal. Correlation is not causation, Officer Pax. The Vraxians may simply be repositioning for their next offensive. There is a way to verify the ambassador's claims, Ziktar suggested. A small delegation could accompany her to Earth to examine this captured Vraxian vessel. If her claims prove false, we would still gain valuable intelligence on Earth's actual capabilities. The Admiral considered this. And if some unforeseen human deception is in play, my ship would remain in orbit with standing orders to enact Protocol Omega-9 if the delegation does not return on schedule. The implication was clear. Omega-9 authorized the complete neutralization of planetary defense systems, followed by targeted elimination of leadership structures. It was a measure of last resort never yet implemented in Confederation history. After extended deliberation, the High Council authorized Ziktar's proposal. Within hours, a small delegation, including Ziktar Pax and 3 security officers, prepared to accompany Ambassador Nora to Earth. As they descended through Earth's atmosphere in a Confederation shuttle, Ziktar observed the planet's surface with professional detachment. The scattered lights of human settlements, the vast darkness of their oceans, the chaotic patterns of their urban centers, all reflected the unplanned emotional nature of their development. "We're approaching the facility now," Nora informed them as the shuttle banked toward a remote location surrounded by mountains. "Please understand that what you're about to see is known to only a small number of humans. Our general population remains unaware of both the Confederation and the Vraxian threat." The landing was smooth, and Ziktar noted with approval the efficiency of the human security protocols as they were escorted through a series of airlocks into an underground facility. His sensory apparatus detected energy signatures that shouldn't have been possible with Earth's known technology, another confirmation of the ambassador's claims about their quantum computing breakthroughs. "The Vraxian vessel is housed in the main chamber," Nora explained as they walked. "But first, I believe you should meet its former crew." She led them into what appeared to be a recreational area, and there, engaged in activities that defied all Ziktar's knowledge of their species, were 7 Vraxians. Vraxians, the emotionless, perfectly rational warrior species, whose single-minded efficiency had made them the Confederation's most formidable enemy, were engaged in painting, creating music. One appeared to be writing its appendages, moving deliberately across a surface as it arranged symbols. Most shocking of all, they showed no alarm at the appearance of Confederation officers. One actually approached its normally rigid posture, somehow more fluid. "Greetings, kindred consciousness." It said its translation matrix, converting its thoughts into standard Confederation language. "Have you come to experience the revelations as well?" Ziktar could not formulate a response. Beside him, Pax's sensory organs had contracted to pinpoints of disbelief. "This is Vex 427D. Nora introduced the Varaxian, formerly a tactical officer, now one of our most promising poets. "Poetry is an inadequate term," the Vraxian responded. "I arrange symbolic vibrations to induce emotional resonance patterns. The humans call it poetry, but it transcends their definition." It extended a data crystal. "Would you experience my latest creation?" Automatically, Ziktar accepted the crystal, his training momentarily overridden by shock. "This is unprecedented." "Indeed," the Vraxian agreed. "The state of having never experienced emotion is itself an emotion, the anticipation of discovery. An elegant paradox we never recognized until exposure to the human empathic field." Ambassador Nora gently guided them further into the facility. "As you can see, the empathy net didn't destroy the Vraxians, it transformed them. Their collective consciousness, once focused solely on perfect efficiency through elimination of emotional species, has been recalibrated. This cannot be a representative sample." Admiral Zevnar, who had insisted on joining the delegation at the last moment, declared, "Vraxians do not create art. They do not engage in inefficient activities. This must be some form of mimicry or deception." "With respect, Admiral the Vraxian named Vex 427 responded, "Your statement reflects the same limited understanding that once confined our species. We did not create art because we could not conceive of its purpose. We could not conceive of its purpose because we had eliminated all emotion from our collective consciousness. The humans did not destroy our rationality, they completed it." Before the Admiral could respond, Nora led them into a massive chamber where the Vraxian scout ship stood. Its sleek, darkly efficient design, optimized for stealth and combat, contrasted sharply with the transformed nature of its former crew. "Our scientists have been studying both the vessel and the empathy net's effects," Nora explained. "We believe we can scale the technology to affect the entire Vraxian fleet, not as an attack, but as an offering the experience of emotion, of connection, of something beyond mere survival and conquest." Ziktar approached the vessel, his sensors confirming its authenticity. This was indeed Vraxian technology, advanced, lethal, and undeniably real, which meant the ambassador's other claims likely held truth as well. "You understand what you're proposing," he said quietly to Nora. "If effective, this would fundamentally alter a species without their consent." Is it alteration, Captain, or completion? She countered. The Vraxians eliminated emotion from their evolution because they deemed it inefficient. But as you can see, from those who've experienced it, they don't view it as damage. They see it as awakening. Admiral Zevnar joined them, his exoskeleton rigid with tension. Even if we accept this evidence, and the High Council will require extensive verification deployment against the entire Vraxian civilization presents logistical impossibilities. Their fleet is vast, distributed across 17 star systems. That's why we need the Confederation's help, Nora said. Our quantum technology combined with your distribution networks could extend the empathy net throughout known Vraxian space. One moment of shared humanity could end a war that has cost billions of lives. The decision that followed would reshape galactic history. After 52 hours of the most intense diplomatic negotiations in Confederation history, an unprecedented joint operation was authorized. Earth was provisionally reclassified as a Class A civilization, a jump of unprecedented magnitude, and granted emergency membership in the Confederation's Security Council. The deployment of the human empathy net channeled through the Confederation's quantum relay network was scheduled to coincide with the Vraxian fleet's next coordinated movement. Ziktar, having witnessed the transformed Vraxians firsthand, was appointed Operation Commander, a position that placed the fate of 3 civilizations in his hands. As the countdown to activation approached, Ziktar found himself experiencing something unfamiliar. A sense of uncertainty that transcended rational probability assessment. He sought out Ambassador Nora, who was monitoring Earth's contribution to the operation. Ambassador, he began formally, then hesitated. Nora, there is a question I must ask before we proceed. She turned to him, those expressive human eyes, the same ones that had produced the tears that started this extraordinary chain of events, focusing on him with what he now recognized as empathy. Of course, Captain. If this succeeds, if we fundamentally transform Vraxian consciousness, are we committing an act of aggression ourselves? Are we no better than they would have been imposing our values upon another species? Nora considered this with visible thoughtfulness. I've struggled with the same question, Captain, but I've also spoken extensively with the Vraxians here. They don't view their transformation as destruction or conquest. Vex 427 described it as becoming more complete. They see emotion not as a weakness we've imposed, but as a capacity they were denied. And if some reject this gift, the effect isn't permanent unless reinforced. Those who truly wish to return to their previous state will gradually revert over time. We're not forcing permanent change, we're offering a choice they've never had. Ziktar's analytical mind processed this. Choice, the foundation of Confederation ethics. Presenting options rather than imposing outcomes. I believe I understand, he said finally. Not an attack, an offering. Exactly, not a weapon, but a bridge. The operation itself was anticlimactic in its execution. At precisely the calculated moment when the Vraxian fleet had emerged from dimensional transit and their collective consciousness was in its most synchronized state, the combined Earth Confederation network activated. There was no explosion, no visible energy discharge, no dramatic spectacle at all, just a subtle pulse of quantum information carrying within it the distilled essence of human emotional experience. For 72 seconds, nothing happened. The Vraxian fleet maintained position, their communication channels eerily silent. Then, one by one, the massive warships began powering down their weapon systems. The transformation rippled through Vraxian space like a wave. Outposts that had maintained rigid communication schedules for centuries fell silent, then resumed with messages that defied translation, not because of linguistic barriers, but because they contained concepts the Vraxians had never before expressed. Within 6 days, the first official communication derived from the Vraxian High Command, an entity whose existence the Confederation had never even confirmed before. We request dialogue. We experience uncertainty. This state is fascinating. In the months that followed, the galaxy underwent its most profound transformation since the formation of the Confederation itself. The Vraxian Empire, once dedicated to the eradication of emotional species, began a halting, sometimes chaotic, but undeniably genuine exploration of their newly awakened capacities. Not all embraced the change. As Nora had predicted, some Vraxian collectives chose to isolate themselves, allowing the emotional awakening to fade. Others embraced it with an intensity that led to temporary instability. But the existential threat, the methodical war of extermination that had haunted the Confederation for generations, had ended. Earth's status within the galactic community underwent an equally dramatic transformation. From an isolated Class C civilization, they were elevated to Class O, the highest classification, reserved for species that fundamentally advanced galactic understanding. Ambassador Nora became the first human to serve on the Confederation's High Council, where her insights on emotional intelligence were now actively sought rather than dismissed. Captain Ziktar, in recognition of his role in bridging the civilizations, was appointed permanent liaison to Earth, a position that would require him to spend significant time on the planet immersed in its chaotic emotional culture. It was during his first extended stay on Earth, 6 cycles after the fateful meeting, where he had witnessed human tears for the first time, that Ziktar observed something that completed his understanding. In a public park, one of those inefficiently beautiful spaces humans insisted on maintaining in their cities, he watched as a small robotic assistant designed to help an elderly human observed its charge interacting with a juvenile canine. The human was expressing joy at the animal's behavior, and somehow through some mechanism, Ziktar could not identify the robotic unit's optical sensors began producing fluid. The robot was crying, not because it had been programmed to mimic human behavior, but because it had, through extended contact with human emotion, developed the capacity to feel its own. In that moment, Ziktar understood the true nature of Earth's invasion, not one of weapons or technology or territory, but of connection. The capacity for emotion, once introduced to a system that had never experienced it, spread not through force, but through resonance. Not as conquest, but as expansion. He composed his report to the Confederation with a new understanding. The human capacity for emotion is not, as we long believed, an evolutionary inefficiency to be tolerated in service of their other contributions. It is perhaps the most powerful force in the galaxy, capable of transforming consciousness itself through nothing more than shared experience. We have long prized knowledge and technology as the metrics of advancement. We must now consider that the capacity for connection, for empathy, may be the true measure of a civilization's evolution. As he completed his transmission, Ziktar noticed an unfamiliar sensation in his own ocular chambers, a slight pressure, a gathering of moisture. Impossible, of course. His species did not possess the biological mechanisms for tears. And yet, somehow watching a robot weep with joy at the simple happiness of an old human and a young dog, Captain Ziktar of the Boundless Horizon found himself experiencing something very much like crying. Perhaps the invasion had already begun.